you see him on the news.
CNN.com contributor, Dean Obeidallah. So, Dean...
Watch him at comedy clubs.
When I say Mecca, do you think of a holy place or an urban clothing line?
Read his articles, and you hear him on the radio. The Dean Obeidallah Show is on live right here on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the Resistance. Thursday, January 17th. I'm Dean Obeidallah. On Twitter, on Facebook.com/Dean of Radio, Twittered at Dean Obeidallah, where I'm needy. Dean at deanofradio.com. I'm going to thank my friend Naira Haq for filling in for me yesterday. I was off yesterday, not to be off. I was going to New Jersey to moderate a town hall with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, who's been on the show a few times. And a few hours before the town hall, the governor's office canceled due to security concerns, not at the mosque, but from the community. There was a building protest that was going on. And it's a case that we're going to talk about later in this show. I have a Black Lives Matter activist on from Paterson, New Jersey. We're going to talk about a case that should get national attention. Jameek Lowry, 27-year-old African-American man. He went to the Paterson, New Jersey police station for help. Now he's dead. He's not a criminal. He wasn't wanted. He went there for help. They take him in an ambulance. For some reason he gets out of the ambulance. He can't breathe any longer. Dies 2 days later in the hospital. Never regains consciousness. And the community, as you would imagine, is up in arms. They want justice. We'll talk about it later in the show. Daily reminder, we are now 27 days into Donald Trump's shutdown. 27 days. Think about it. It's almost a month that over 800,000 federal employees and millions of federal contractors have got no pay and, worst of all, have no idea where their next paycheck comes from. Because Donald Trump, to him, it's a game. Their lives mean nothing because his base wants this. And we've said it countless times. Donald Trump is not president of the United States, nor does he want to be president of the United States. Trump just wants to be king of his base. And even if you're in his base, you are suffering now because polls have shown, new poll came out today, he's lost 7% of Republican support since the shutdown began. 7% it's not huge, but it's statistically significant. It really means something. And here, by the way, is Jimmy Kimmel's play last night on his show on ABC to Trump to try to get him to end the shutdown. Let's hear clip number 1, please.
I know it doesn't mean much to Donald Trump that a bunch of Americans are being forced to work without paychecks, or that vital services like food inspection and TSA, anti-terrorism efforts are being compromised. But I know what does matter to you. I know what you care about, down to the bottom of your Kentucky Fried Little heart. And that is golf, okay? Donald Trump has not been able to play a round of golf in 52 days. The only time the president gets to yell "for" now is when he tells his staff how many Whoppers he wants for lunch. He can't golf when the government shut down because people will go nuts. It wouldn't look good. And that, Mr. President, that is killing you. It's killing you faster than those 12 Diet Cokes you drank this afternoon. But here's the thing. With one crazy zigzag stroke of your executive Sharpie, you could be back on the greens at Mar-a-Lago. We need you out on the golf course as much as possible to keep you from doing things. So think about it.
Go play golf, Trump, and stop. That's why in the beginning when Trump would go on vacation, I remember writing an article for CNN, his first vacation because he had mocked Obama. By his second vacation, I wrote an article for CNN going, please go on more vacations. We need you to go on vacations. And then here's Colbert on Nancy Pelosi yesterday, sending a letter to Donald Trump that we're not going to have your State of the Union, or at least you should consider postponing it. Let's hear clip number 2, please.
Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi sent Donald Trump a letter asking him to reschedule the State of the Union. That's reasonable. That's a reasonable request.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, what's she going to do? The State of our Union is the Democrats' fault. So why is she doing this? Because she can. He's the president, but she's the speaker. Rule is, he can only go there by her invitation. Trump acts like the big dog, but she won't let the dog into her house because she knows he's going to poop everywhere. Okay? Out.
Oh, gonna poop everywhere. If Trump could hear that, he'd be tweeting, Colbert, #no talent. That's life. And then Donald Trump today responded a short time ago. You may or may not have seen this. He responded by sending a letter to Nancy Pelosi. She was supposed to leave for a trip to Afghanistan, Egypt, and Brussels. And he canceled her trip, at least within the power he can. He can't really keep her in the country. But he sent a letter to her that released to the public saying, due to the shutdown, I am sorry to inform you that your trip to Brussels, Egypt, and Afghanistan has been postponed. We will reschedule this 7-day excursion when the shutdown is over. Excursion, like it's a fun, like I'm going to summer in Afghanistan. What'd your summer last? Kabul was great. She was going for fact-finding as the third-ranking member of our government. Now, then Trump did a little dig saying, obviously, if you'd like to make your journey by flying commercial, that would certainly be your prerogative. I hope she does. I would chip in for Nancy Pelosi Travel Fund to go. And Trump, you've got your stupid private jets that I see at LaGuardia every time I take off. Let her use one of your private jets. How about that? This is pettiness. On its face, it's pettiness. The flip side is it's horribly irresponsible. And here's Jake Tapper on CNN just a short time ago explaining why Trump going public about her trip, Nancy Pelosi, with other members of Congress to a war zone and revealing that publicly is beyond petty. It's actually dangerous and life-threatening. And here's clip number 8.
Welcome to The Lead. I'm Jake Tapper. We begin with breaking news in the national lead. President Trump taking the stunning step of canceling the military aircraft that were to have been used right now by House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and a congressional delegation in a trip to Belgium and to Afghanistan. The president violating decades of security protocols by publicly announcing ahead of time a secret trip to a war zone. A Republican member of Congress telling me just minutes ago the members of Congress are always told never divulge any trip to a war zone until after you have left the war zone.
So Donald Trump literally canceled her trip hours before her and other members of a congressional delegation were to go and said if you want to fly commercial to Afghanistan, you can. But of course, alerting the Taliban that the third-ranking person in our government is heading to Afghanistan, which you should never do, neither Democrat nor Republican. Doesn't matter. The lives of the elected officials should never be put at risk. But Trump doesn't think it through. And by the way, if you think it's about saving money, it's not, because NBC confirmed a short time ago that the trip to Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum with Secretary of Treasury Steve Mnuchin is still on. And they're going to go hobnob with millionaires and billionaires. So they're spending your money there while Americans are suffering because they're going to hobnob with millionaires and billionaires. But to me, that was Donald Trump's attempt to change the story. There are a lot of other stories in the news today. Just quickly on Rudy Giuliani last night saying to Chris Cuomo on CNN that I never said there was no collusion between the campaign and Russia. I said Trump didn't collude. This is a big bunch of nothing. The media loves that crap. That's not admissible in a court of law. That's a statement of Rudy Giuliani, not Trump. And secondly, it's just cable news fodder. I mean, it means nothing other than cable news going back and forth. We all see the reality of what's going on. Numerous people from the Trump campaign are involved in talking to the Russians. Paul Manafort gave polling data, which was clear to a high-rushing member of the elite oligarchs over there. There's no doubt there's a connection. But in any event, to me, what I think is far more important are issues that deal with real life. And I always try to focus on that when given a chance, as opposed to left-right talking points. And the last few days, we've talked a lot about the shutdown and the human impact. There was another issue yesterday that if I was here, I would have opened with, and I want to talk about it for a little bit today, and I'd love to get your reaction. And that is this horrible story out of Syria. Let's hear clip number 3.
4 Americans are among the dead after Wednesday's suicide bomb attack in the Syrian city of Manbij claimed by Islamic State. U.S. Central Command said a bomber with a suicide vest targeted a restaurant where U.S. troops were meeting an allied militia. The blast killed 2 U.S. soldiers and 2 American civilians working for the military. The attack appears to be the deadliest on U.S. forces in Syria since they deployed there in 2015.
That was the most deadly attack on U.S. soldiers since we've deployed troops again in Syria since 2015. And it got a little bit of coverage. It deserves a lot more. 2 U.S. service members killed, a federal contractor, and a Defense Department employee killed. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they are dead because of Donald Trump alone. That would be irresponsible. Obviously, the suicide bomber is the person who took their lives. I will say Donald Trump has some responsibility for their deaths. And I say that because experts have made the point, since Donald Trump declared in December that we were going to pull out of Syria, that it was not the right thing to do now. It was not done responsibly. It was not done coordinating with our allies like the Kurds. Instead, it was willy-nilly, without any kind of working with leaders in his own party, our allies, or even his own Secretary of Defense at the time, James Mattis. Because Trump doesn't have to. You know why? Here, this is what Trump will tell you. Let me remind you about Trump. Here's clip number 4.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me.
He knows more. That's why 4 Americans are dead today. Because Donald Trump knows more than our generals. Therefore, are dead today. On December 19th, Donald Trump tweeted, "We have defeated ISIS in Syria. My only reason for being there during the presidency," adding in another tweet right after, "It's time to bring our great young people home." That statement would be fine if he coordinated with military leaders and our allies. Taking our troops home would be great. We all want our troops to come home. Telegraphing that to the enemy before you've done it is irresponsible and dangerous. So that led to him in December saying we're going to take our allies out. The next day, then Secretary of Defense James Mattis, a 4-star Marine general who served for 44 years in our military, resigned. And in his letter, he talked about our strength as a nation relies on our relationship with our allies. We must be clear-eyed about threats. Quote, "We must do everything possible to advance an international order that is most conducive to our security, prosperity, and values. And we are strengthened in this effort by the solidarity of our alliances." James Mattis in that letter did not praise Donald Trump once, just said he should have someone more in line with his views. Even GOP senators at the time warned ISIS was not defeated and that our Kurdish allies are very, very concerned. Last week, it's confirmed, absolutely, we began pulling out equipment. It's not confirmed that we began pulling out troops, but there's absolutely no dispute, as various publications, a convoy of 10 armored vehicles was pulled out last week. I was just looking at articles from last week about this, heading towards Iraq. They won't tell us if troops or not have been removed. You can guess or not, but I mean, you have ISIS hearing, obviously, what's going on. On Sunday morning, Donald Trump tweeted, "Starting the long overdue pullout from Syria while hitting the little remaining ISIS territorial caliphate hard and from many directions. So our armors are leaving. Some of our troops, it seems, Trump saying on Sunday we're leaving. On Wednesday, though, yesterday, we lose 4 Americans. And then you have this unbelievable misinformation campaign going on by Mike Pence. Hours after the media reported the 4 deaths, reportedly after he was briefed on the 4 deaths of these Americans, Mike Pence goes before the U.S. State Department and tells the crowd there, ISIS has been defeated and the caliphate has crumbled. Mike Pence, go tell that to the 4 families now mourning. So now, in reality, the Pentagon says there are 30,000 fighters left in Syria and Iraq. Now, have they been beaten down? Yes. Are they weakened? For sure. If you tell the enemy, and I'm quoting from experts, this is not me, I'm not a military expert, I don't pretend to know more than generals, like Donald Trump does. First, if you tell the enemies you're leaving, they get emboldened, and somehow they want to hasten you leaving by committing, this was the worst, just to be clear, 2015 till now, yesterday was the worst loss of American lives in that entire time. It's really hard to believe it's a coincidence that Donald Trump calls for withdrawal, some of our armament leaves the area. Now there's less of an American presence in terms of military equipment, at the very least, if not troops, and this attack happens. And this is worse than Benghazi, and I'm not going to Benghazi this, but this is worse than Benghazi because Benghazi was unexpected attack on our embassy. This was Donald Trump warned since a month ago over the objections of our generals, including his own Secretary of Defense, who resigned in protest. Don't do this. You're making our troops less safe. You're making our allies question us. It's not responsible. You have to do it over time. And what did they do on Fox News? They talked about this for literally, I'm not kidding, during the day, 40 seconds. And then what did they switch to quickly? And I'm going to play it because you can't believe it either. Here's what they did, clip 5.
A judge has ruled that former Obama officials Susan Rice and Ben Rhodes must answer a conservative watchdog's written questions under oath about the Benghazi terror attacks. Judicial Watch is investigating whether the 2012 terror attacks were a factor in, quote, keeping Mrs. Clinton's email secret, end quote. A post-discovery hearing will be held at a later date to determine whether Hillary Clinton and her former chief of staff, Cheryl Mills, may also be deposed.
So on Fox News, they're literally talking about Benghazi. And Donald Trump tweeted endlessly in the last day and two, didn't mention these 4 Americans who died. He did mention it today, to be fair, in a speech. But I don't know how you allocate responsibility for Americans being killed. But there's a connection between Donald Trump's policies and these 4 Americans dying. And to me, talking about Rudy Giuliani's stupid-ass comments means nothing when you're dealing with human life. And I think the media should be doing more of a job focusing on this. And, you know, they did cover it a little bit yesterday. But to me, this is the real story. It's not Giuliani. It's not State of the Union at the Congress or not. And I'd love to hear your view. Because yesterday I was wondering on Twitter, would Nancy Pelosi be viewed as petty by saying to Trump, hey, we think you should put off the State of the Union? And people on Twitter, who are mostly progressives, saying, no, it's a good thing. After Trump today canceling her trip, forget any kind of discussion of pettiness. He just took it to another level, especially with the idea of revealing publicly what's going on. So I'd love to hear from you. You're my guest right to the top of the hour. Do you think it's fair to allocate some blame towards Donald Trump? Some kind of, you can't allocate blame on a percentage basis, but look, Donald Trump, over the objections of our generals, withdrew armament and maybe some troops so far, but he said we are taking out troops. They've not confirmed that. We have the worst tragedy of American lives since we put troops back in Syria happened yesterday. And the media is more concerned about Trump's tweets and a fight over a canceled flight. To me, this is the story, American lives. I'd love to hear from you, 866-997-4748. Give me a call. I'll be right back right after this.
You're listening to the Dean Obeidallah Show, where we crush Trump's lies every single day.
On Sirius XM Progress 127.